Let's stop pretending for a moment. The advice you have been fed about money, the books at the airport, the gurus on your timeline, the lectures from your in-laws at Christmas dinner, they all share one purpose. They are not designed to make you rich. They are designed to make you obedient. I have spent more than 50 years in rooms most people will never see. Rooms where decisions worth billions are made over a single glass of water. Rooms where no one needs to raise their voice because they have nothing left to prove. And I am going to tell you the truth that those rooms protect with everything they have. You are not building wealth, you are being farmed. Every paycheck, every credit card swipe, every car you finance, every Sunday you spend recovering from Monday, you are not climbing a ladder, you are a row of corn. Someone else owns the field. There are two economies operating on this planet at the same time. There is the surface economy, the one you can see. It is loud. It has logos and slogans and motivational posters in break rooms. It tells you to work hard, follow your passion, and the rest will sort itself out. And there is the underground economy, the one that does not advertise, the one that does not need you to believe in it, the one that has compounded quietly through every recession, every revolution, every century. We do not call it anything in public. Behind closed doors, we call it the code of avoidance. The surface economy is built on what to do. The code of avoidance is built on what to refuse. While the many chase income, the few protect equity. While the many fill their lives, the few empty them. While the many ask how to succeed, the few ask how to survive long enough for success to find them. Warning, nothing I am about to tell you will sound clever. Most of it will sound boring. Some of it will offend you. That is the point. The truth about wealth has never been hidden. It has only been ignored. Because the truth sounds too quiet to be valuable. Today I am going to give you 7 things you must avoid if you want to be rich. Not 7 things to add. 7 things to remove. Because wealth is not a building you construct. Wealth is a garden you tend. And the work of the gardener is not in what he plants. It is in what he refuses to let grow. Rule 1, avoid working for money. The first thing you must avoid is the oldest trap in human history. You must avoid working for money. I know how that sounds. You are working right now. You have rent, you have children, you have a car payment that does not care about my philosophy. I am not telling you to quit your job. I am telling you to quit the belief that work is what creates wealth. The public rule says, work hard, get promoted, save, retire well. This is the story we tell at every family dinner. Your parents told it to you. Their parents told it to them. But here is what the rich have always known. Work does not create wealth. Ownership does. Aristotle, 2,000 years before any of us were born, wrote that the avarice of mankind is insatiable. He was not condemning ambition. He was warning us. He understood that a man who works for a wage is exchanging the only finite resource he has, his lifespan, for a temporary, taxable, replaceable token. The wage is consumed. The hours are not refunded. Let me tell you about a man I knew in the late 1970s. His name was Harold Burkett. Harold was a mechanical engineer at a manufacturing firm in Akron, the best engineer in the building. He worked 60 hours a week for 31 years. In 1981, his company was acquired. In 2003, it was acquired again. The patents Harold helped design generated, by my last estimate, just over $400 million in. Royalties in the 2 decades that followed, Harold received none of it. He received a gold watch and a pension that inflation has since eaten alive. His colleague, a less talented engineer named Thomas Reeve, had asked one question Harold never asked. Thomas had asked for equity. Now look at the math, because the math is what will set you free. If you earn $100,000 a year and you save aggressively at 20%, you bank $20,000 annually before taxes. To accumulate $5 million at that rate, ignoring inflation, you will need 250 years. 5, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, div 20, 0, 0, 0, equals 250. You do not have 250 years. But a single equity position in the right business, held for a decade, can produce that same figure from a starting capital of less than $50,000. The labor path is linear. The ownership path is exponential. Stop trading your hours. Start owning the hours of others. Which brings me to the second thing you must avoid. Rule 2, avoid buying a luxury lifestyle. You must avoid buying a luxury lifestyle. This is the rule that everyone agrees with in theory and almost no one obeys in practice. Because the moment money begins to flow, something ancient stirs inside you. You want to be seen. You want to be admired. You want the watch, the car, the address, the table at the restaurant where the maitre d' knows your name. So you spend. Seneca, the Roman senator who counseled emperors, wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." He was not being poetic. He was diagnosing a disease. A luxury lifestyle is not a reward for success. It is a tax on it. Every depreciating car you buy is a coupon you signed against your future. Every square foot of house you do not need is a slow leak in the hull of your ship. Remember, the garden, the wealthy man is not the one with the largest, most ornate garden. The wealthy man is the one whose garden continues to produce fruit long after he has stopped tending it daily. Luxury is decorative pruning. It costs you, and it produces nothing. In the mid-1990s, a young man came into significant capital, $5 million, from the sale of his stake in a software company. He was 32. He came to me for advice. I told him, buy nothing for 2 years. Not a car, not a watch, not a house. Park the money. Read. He nodded. Then he bought a house in the Hamptons. He bought a Porsche. He bought a wine cellar. He did not have the palate to enjoy. By 2004, he was working at a hedge fund in Connecticut just to maintain the lifestyle. By 2009, he was selling the Porsche. His error was simple. He confused the appearance of wealth with the existence of it. Lifestyle is the most expensive imitation ever sold. I have a term I have used with my children, and now with my grandchildren. I call it the lifestyle velocity trap. Every dollar of recurring expense multiplies by the years you intend to maintain it, of $5,000. Monthly lifestyle is not $5,000. It is $5,000 multiplied by 360 months over 30 years. It is $1.8 million you must earn after taxes just to stand still. 5,000 times 12 times 30 equals 1,800. 0, 0, 0. Spend like the gardener. Invest like the landowner. Now we come to the third avoidance. Rule 3, avoid doing everything yourself. You must avoid doing everything yourself. This one is harder than it sounds because it strikes at something deep in the human ego. We all believe, secretly, that no one can do it as well as we can. We trust ourselves more than we trust others, and that distrust will cap your wealth at the exact size of your own two hands. Andrew Carnegie, the steel baron, wrote, "No person will make a great business who wants to do it all himself or get all the credit. He understood something the working man rarely does." Wealth is built on the organized effort of many minds, not the heroic effort of one. The man who does everything himself owns a job. He does not own a business. I have watched with great sympathy hundreds of entrepreneurs over 5 decades. The pattern is identical. They start the business because they are excellent at the craft, the baker, the plumber, the consultant, the developer. They become indispensable. They become the only person who can handle the difficult clients, the complex orders, the late night problems. And then they wake up at 60 years old, having built a prison that pays them a salary. Think of the garden again. A gardener does not photosynthesize. He does not produce chlorophyll. He does not push minerals through the roots himself. He arranges the conditions under which the plants do their own work. His job is design. His job is selection. His job is the removal of what does not belong. He is not in the soil. He is above it. A friend of mine, a woman who built one of the largest private logistics companies in the Midwest, told me once that the day she made her first $100 million was the day she stopped opening her own mail. She meant it literally. She had not opened her own mail in 7 years. Every decision had been pre-filtered by a team of people whose job was to bring her only the choices that mattered. This is leverage. And leverage is not optional for wealth. It is the only path to it. The math is unforgiving. There are 24 hours in your day. There are 24 hours in mine. There are 24 hours in the day of the wealthiest man alive. The only difference is what fills those hours and who fills. Fill your hours alone, and your ceiling is what one human being can produce. Fill them with the structured effort of 50, and your ceiling is 50 times higher. Hire before you are ready. Delegate before it is comfortable. Your ego will protest. Override it. The fourth, avoidance is invisible until you learn to see it. Rule 4, avoid having too many inputs. You must avoid having too many inputs. In the era I came of age in, information was scarce. We waited for the morning paper. We read the quarterly reports when they arrived in the mail. We did not know what the market in Tokyo was doing until the next day's edition reached our doorstep. We had silence. And in that silence, we could think. You do not have silence anymore. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor with the entire Roman world demanding his attention, wrote in his private journal, "Of each particular thing, ask what is it in itself." He understood that the mind under siege from constant inputs cannot evaluate any single one with the depth required to act. The modern man is fed 11,000 commercial messages a day. He receives news on a loop that refreshes faster than his nervous system can process. He has 15 tabs open in his browser, 3 group chats demanding response, and a financial channel running on the television in the background. He is, biologically, a man drowning in a flood of small splashes, and he wonders why he cannot think clearly. I have a discipline I have practiced for over 40 years. I read 3 things in the morning and nothing else until noon. I do not look at price tickers. I do not check headlines. I do not respond to messages that did not exist when I went to sleep. Because the man who reacts to everything cannot allocate to anything. There is a term used in signal processing, the noise floor. It is the level of background interference below which no real signal can be detected. Most people live with a noise floor so high that no signal, no matter how loud, can reach them. They mistake stimulation for thought. They mistake commentary for analysis. They mistake the panic of a financial channel for information. A man I respected greatly, a steel industry investor who lived to 94, once told me he had not owned a television since 1978. When I asked him why, he said, "I cannot afford to be talked to by people who do not know me." That sentence has stayed with me for 30 years. Subtract your inputs, cut your feeds, disable your alerts, cancel the subscriptions to publications that exist to keep you anxious. The wealthy do not have access to better information than you. They have access to less. And they have ruthlessly curated what reaches them. A clear mind is the rarest asset of the 21st century. Build one. The 5th avoidance is the one I find most difficult to teach. Rule 5, avoid being ego-driven. You must avoid being driven by ego. This is the rule that has destroyed more fortunes than any market crash, because the market only takes from you what you can mathematically afford to lose. The ego takes everything. Lao Tzu wrote, "He who knows others is wise. He who knows himself is enlightened." And he wrote something else less famous but more useful. "He who is content is rich." The ego is the engine of discontent. It does not stop when you have enough. It does not stop when you have more than enough. It pushes you to acquire, to defend, to retaliate, to prove long past the point where any of those actions serves your wealth. Let me tell you about a man I will simply call Jonathan. Jonathan was a private equity man in Chicago who had, by 1998, accumulated something close to $90 million in personal net worth. He was 46. He could have stopped. He had won. But Jonathan had a rival, a man named Curtis, at a competing firm. Curtis had recently closed a deal that, in Jonathan's mind, was an insult. So Jonathan leveraged. He took on positions he should not have taken. He bet against tech in 1999, which was correct, but he bet at the wrong size. By the time the market proved him right in 2001, he had been margin called out of the trade. He ended that decade with $4 million, owing his ex-wife most of it. Jonathan was not destroyed by the market. He was destroyed by Curtis, or rather, by his own need to defeat Curtis. The gardener does not care that the neighbor's hedge is taller. The gardener does not stay up at night plotting the destruction of the rose bush across the street. He tends his own soil, because the gardener understands what the ego-driven man does. Not the only race that matters is between you and the man you were yesterday. Here is the practical test. When you find yourself about to make a decision to enter a deal, to buy something visible, to retaliate against a perceived insult, ask one question. Would I still want this if no one would ever know I did it? If the answer is no, the decision is being made by your ego, not your judgment. Discard it. I have a term I have used for decades. I call it egoflation. It is the inflation of decision-making by the demands of self-image. Every choice driven by ego is overpriced. Every choice driven by judgment is purchased at a discount. The man who can suppress his ego is, in effect, the only buyer in the market. Now we come to the sixth avoidance. Rule 6, avoid passing the blame. You must avoid passing the blame. I am going to make a claim that will sound exaggerated, and I want you to sit with it. Every financial outcome in your life, every single one of them, is your responsibility, not your boss's, not the economy's, not your parents', not the government's, not your spouse's. I know how that sounds. There are real injustices. There are real disadvantages. I am not pretending there are not. But the wealthy man has noticed something the poor man has not. Blame is the most expensive emotion you can hold. Every minute you spend explaining why something is not your fault is a minute you are not spending fixing it. Every story you tell about why you cannot win is a story your mind has now accepted as a final ruling. Epictetus, born a Roman slave, died a respected philosopher, wrote, "It is the act of an ill-instructed man to blame others for his own bad condition. It is the act of one who has begun to be instructed to lay the blame on himself, and of one whose instruction is complete to blame neither another nor himself." In 1973, the oil shock destroyed entire industries. I had a portfolio that was, on paper, cut nearly in half within 11 months. I knew men, sharp men, men with better degrees than mine who blamed OPEC, blamed Nixon, blamed the bankers, blamed the press. They were correct. All of those parties played a role. And every single man who blamed his way through that decade emerged from it poorer than when it began. I did not blame, I bought. I bought what was cheap because everyone else was busy explaining why it was someone else's fault. By 1982, the portfolio I held had quadrupled. The men who had blamed had no portfolio left. Same crisis. Two responses. The garden does not care whose fault the drought was. The garden requires water. If you spend your summer demanding an apology from the sky, you will harvest nothing in the fall. I want to give you a tool. I call it the 1-hour rule. When something goes wrong financially, a deal collapses, an investment sours, a job is lost, you are permitted 1 hour. 1 hour to complain, to grieve, to curse, to blame. At the end of that hour, the topic is closed. From that moment forward, you are only permitted to ask one question. What can I now do? This is not a denial of pain. This is the rationing of it. Because pain, like spending, must be budgeted or it will consume everything you have. The seventh and final avoidance is the one that separates those who get rich from those who stay rich. Rule 7, avoid staying static. You must avoid staying static. This is the avoidance no one warns you about because it does not feel like an error. It feels like rest. It feels like you have earned it. You have built something. You have weathered storms. You have, perhaps, made enough. And now you wish to stand still. Heraclitus, the Greek philosopher who lived 2,500 years ago, wrote, "No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it is not the same river, and he is not the same man. He was not writing about wealth, but he might as well have been, wealth is a river. The man who builds a fortune and then refuses to evolve is not preserving his fortune. He is watching it dissolve slowly while telling himself it is safely stored. I have watched this happen 3 times in my career. I watched it in the steel families of the 1960s who believed steel would always be steel. I watched it in the retail dynasties of the 1980s who believed brick and mortar would always be brick and mortar. I watched it in the print media families of the 2000s who believed paper would always be paper. None of them were lazy. None of them were stupid. They simply stopped moving. The river moved without them. Think of the gardener one last time. A garden left to itself does not stay a garden. It does not remain in beautiful stasis. In a season or two, it becomes indistinguishable from the wilderness around it. The pruning, the watering, the seasonal rotation, these are not optional maintenance. They are the garden itself. Stop them. And the garden was never a garden. It was only the gardener. You, in other words, are not your wealth. You are the act of building it. Stop building, and you are nothing. And the wealth follows you into nothing. Here is the discipline I have practiced and that I commend to you. Once each year, on the same date, I sit down with 3 questions. What did I believe 12 months ago that I no longer believe? What did I refuse to learn that I will now learn? What part of my life is operating on autopilot, and is that autopilot still flying in the right direction? These 3 questions are the audit of a living portfolio. They are also the audit of a living mind. There is a term I have used for 60 years. I call it directional decay. It is the slow loss of relevance that occurs, not because you have made any single bad decision, but because the world has moved while you have not. Most fortunes are not destroyed in a single moment. They erode in directional decay. Stay in motion, even when you are tired, especially when you are tired. So let us review the code of avoidance. Avoid working for money. Avoid buying a luxury lifestyle. Avoid doing everything yourself. Avoid having too many inputs. Avoid being ego-driven. Avoid passing the blame. Avoid staying static. 7 avoidances, 7 subtractions, 7 things to remove from your life, not to add. And if you remove them, what remains will be the structure of a wealthy man. I will tell you something I have not said often, and I want you to hear it carefully. Of every 100 people who watch this video to the end, 95 will agree with everything I have said. 4 will remember 1 or 2 of these avoidances next week. Only one will print this list, place it where they see it every morning, and structure the next 12 months of their life around it. That one person is the person whose life will be unrecognizable in 5 years. I do not know which one you are. You do not know which one you are either. Not yet. So I am going to ask you for one thing. Take a piece of paper, not your phone paper. Write down the one avoidance from these 7 that you already know has been costing you the most. Do not write the one that sounds noble. Write the one that stings. The one you almost skipped past because you did not want to think about it. Underneath it, write a single sentence. From today, I am no longer the kind of person who does this. Sign it, date it, keep it. This is not a contract with me. It is a contract with the version of yourself who exists 10 years from now, the one looking back, wondering whether you took today seriously. The garden does not care about your intentions. The garden cares about your hands. Get to work.